Training opportunities with James and Ryan. You can do an externship with James in Bend, Oregon, October 15th through 18th, 2025. Lisa J. Palmer Olson and Dr. James Hawkins will co-lead core skills modules in Colorado. Modules 1 and 2 are scheduled for October 8th through 10th, 2025. And modules 3 and 4 for January 7th through 9th, 2026. The Arkansas EFT Center externship will take place from July 29th to August 1st, 2025 in Fayetteville, Arkansas. The training will be led by George and Ryan with a cameo appearance by James. Join the SV team at the first ever SV Focus Lab, an advanced EFCT training focusing on EFT and Sue's model. This hybrid event offers a 10% discount for leading edge listeners who register before July 1st at svfocuslab.com. Leading edge, and these links can be found in the show notes.
Do you really need to have a plan going into a couple session? We're going to talk about today what happens if you don't.
Welcome to the Leading Edge in Emotionally Focused Therapy with your hosts, Dr. James Hawkins and Dr. Ryan Rana. EFT is a dynamic model that humbles even the most seasoned therapists. Together, we want to come alongside you as you continually push the leading edge of your understanding and application of this wonderful model developed by Dr. Sue Johnson.
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate all your faithful listening to our voices. It means a lot to us. I want to say thank you because this topic today hits at one of the things I'm most thankful for, which is couples distress don't really allow us just to come in and be supernatural. They don't. They don't. I'd love to just come in and hang out, but it is a sacrifice. It is work.
I don't know. Are you meaning to have wordplay? Because you said the couples conflict doesn't allow us to be supernatural, like powerful, or supernatural, like just relax and chill, laid back. I don't know.
However you want to take it. But I was meaning laid back and chill.
Got you.
You know, I did 6 individuals yesterday. Just my schedule worked out that way. And it's just noticeable. And I still think it's really important. In fact, I'm doing an EFIT series right now on how it's important to come in with a bit of a structure, you know, because it's tempting just to hang out and have a coffee with somebody. And I'm not saying that's a terrible thing, but it's not even really ideal to do too much of that with individuals. But with couples in particular, it is a lick on your energy. And so I want to say thank you to the listeners here who are willing to typically work with a couple for no more money, really, than an individual when it's about 4 times harder. So thank you for being a star in the community that you live in and being a voice of healing. We appreciate you here.
Yeah, and on that one, it actually kind of touched, getting to talk to some therapists at different places and hearing how therapists show up even when they're in their own conflict with their partners or children, and they still got to show up and meet other people in their conflict, hold space, help them navigate it while it feels like their own world is falling apart. And just thank you for being able to do that, and I want to be careful how I say this, but, it makes me think about how people thank the military for the sacrifices they make. Yeah. It makes me feel a little similar for therapists. Like, hey, you're having to move towards things that most people want to go away from, and you're having to put some of your comforts and pleasures on pause in service of others.
I feel exactly the same way as I do towards military people.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
for
right.
real. So we want you to make sure Ryan and I feel that way about you, because this can be sometimes a very thankless career sometimes. And and you do your work in private, so it doesn't get to be celebrated publicly. So thank you all for your heart.
Absolutely. All right. So our topic today was kind of my idea, talking about every episode, there's always a balance, right? There's always a balance of whatever concept we're going for. But I'm thinking about, as usual, most of the ideas that are generated for this podcast come from you all in some way, or videos that I review, either for certification or in supervision or my own. Yeah. Sometimes I'm watching myself work off of a live demo somewhere and I'm like, hey, I like that I did that, or I don't like that I did that. Either way, we can all kind of learn together. So I had 3 or 4. supervision sessions over a period of time not too long ago. And first of all, I want to say I really, really respect and appreciate the people that sent the videos, because I'm thinking of about 4. They all said, hey, this is embarrassing, but I want to show you my hardest case, and I'm not doing very well. So I respect that. It's easy just to have someone either never watch you or only watch you when you're feeling really strong. So I appreciate these 3 or 4 folks who were like, hey, I'm completely lost. I'm doing a bad job and I know it. And so we've all been there. So I want to be clear the context of that, but I also want to learn from it. And so our topic today is, if you don't have a plan when you walk into a distressed couples session, there's some very predictable things that are about to happen to you. And so this kind of reflects back on the Get Your Mind Right series, just kind of going a little bit different way with nuance here. So I think it's normal to not want to have a plan, right? We want to be attuned, and we want to not be cookie cutter and so forth. And so some people, I think about one video in particular, the therapist just came in and kind of just teed up Tango 1, and it wasn't severe escalation necessarily, but it was a lot of mocking of one another, like debating. And the therapist was just quiet for 20 minutes, and the safety just draining out of the room, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, and people are starting to flood. And, I would pause and say, where are you? What's going on? She's like, I don't know what to say here. I don't know where to come in. And so the second half of our supervision session, instead of talking about plans, we just role played those scenarios. I'm like, I want you to try to say word for word what he just said, and I want to just try to find a way to come alongside this. That's how we ended it. But I came back around with this therapist and said, what was your plan before you went in? And she's like, just trying to do some EFT, hoping to get into some deep emotion and an act, and it just never was there. And I'm like, right, so you want to have a little more structure than that? Because in high distress relationships, there is always emotion, but it is often very hard to find.
Yep.
And if that's your only plan, you really didn't have one. And if you don't have a plan, or if your plan sounds like this, I'm going to integrate 3 or 4 models, we'll just see what happens. You better be a pro, and you better have a very specific plan of how and when you're going to integrate each. If you're trying to do an hour sitting next to a high distress relationship, or other things that I really respect that I would say are suspect, are I'm just going to come in. I'm just going to create a safe space for them. I'm just going to hang out and see what happens, right? Let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to get into a problem of a bunch of 8s, and not the letter 8. Hang on a minute. Not the number 8. Let's start that all over.
I didn't even catch that one.
I wish we had an editor. If you don't have a plan, okay, if you don't have a plan, you're going to have a problem of several 8s. Not the number 8, but the letters ATE. All right? Because the first thing that's going to happen is, without a plan, you're probably going to triangulate.
Yeah.
As they each tell their story, the problem is you're also a human with your own experiences, your own biases, your cultural biases, your gender, your heteronormative, all the things that we can't help but have because we also have experience. Your brain is going to probably triangulate. And that's pretty normal when you do, by the way. So, it's not about feel terrible about yourself, but I do need you to notice it. Because if I start thinking, well, I think partner B is actually right, I think partner A is bad, then the cycle's got me. I just got lost in my own self with the therapist stuff, and the cycle now has me, okay? Yeah. So pause. No, I'm not saying every cycle means both people are equal. I don't think anybody's ever actually equal. The problem is I'm in the wrong chair.
That's right.
I'm judging. Now I'm the evaluator of each person. And the biggest problem with that is I actually don't know the context. I haven't walked in their shoes. So if I'm agreeing with one party over the other, even just mentally, the cycle has me. I've lost my process role. And so what moves next is the next 8. So triangulate, right? What it's going to draw me in to do is to mediate. So I'm going to try to jump into specifics, content, areas, and now I'm trying to mediate their content. Big James give me big no-nos. And so the next one is I just lost my train of thought, James. Help me out.
I don't know. I feel like
I got it back. I'm back. Next thing you know, I'm going to negotiate, right? So I got 8s here: triangulate, mediate, negotiate, conflict. And that's the biggest thing I would take away there that this supervisee got into. When she finally did jump in, she was trying to negotiate. Well, couldn't you do more of this? Couldn't you do more of that? What if you tried this? What if you tried that? Not knocking this person. I've been there, especially early in my career. Even though I knew process second order work was a better level. Let's just call it what it is. It's better. It's a better form of therapy.
Yep.
But I would go in without a clear plan of how to do that, how to stay at that process level. Next thing you know, I'm kind of working like I'm the Wizard of Oz. I'm trying to like negotiate, mediate. What if you did this? What if you did that? What if you forgave this? What if you tried this? Even bringing in some good research about what Gottman said, but I'm off. And it started being off because I walked in without a real plan. So let's talk a bit more about that after the break.
All right. Well, Ryan and I love being able to do this in our work on SV, but we got to acknowledge our parent organization, the International Center for the Excellence in Emotionally Focused Therapy, started by John and Sue Gottman. Just so thankful for their work. And what they created at ICEEFT.com, please check them out, is a great platform where you can literally go on, check for trainings in EFT around the world with some great trainers in different languages, in different focuses and specialties, and the online learning library. We really want to encourage you by going on ICEEFT.com, and if you choose to become a member, you also get discounts on training materials, attending events. The EFT World Summit will be coming up next year. Is it right, Ryan? Or is it? I'm losing track now.
27, I think.
There you go. So that would be a great way to just resources. And you can become a member of the listserv. Other EFTers are talking about things that they're doing. They're asking questions. And every now and then trainers chime in and answer questions. So once again, we definitely want to encourage you to be a part of ICEEFT.com and hearing about all the research articles and things that we're doing to push this model forward. Just want to appreciate you and thank you so much for listening. All right.
Yeah, so sorry I messed up the 8 thing there. So not the number 8, but words that end with ATE.
I like the play there. Triangulate. Okay.
Johnny Cochran going here. If the glove doesn't fit, I don't know.
Okay.
Been watching too many OJ documentaries. All right. So if you go in without a plan, what you're doing is you're setting your nervous system up.
Yeah.
So in my very effort to be attuned and just create safety, I've actually put my nervous system in a bind. Because without a plan of what I'm going to do, or just a generally staying on map, I'm probably going to triangulate just because I have an opinion and a bias. And people are good at making their case because they've made it thousands of times at home. So now they're in my office. I'm like, well, I do kind of agree with that. That's a danger cue to recognize, the cycle's trying to get me. So triangulate, which is probably going to draw me to mediate, which is going to try to move me. My theory of change becomes to negotiate. And the last 8, if you do that, the warning is you're going to get ready to remediate because they're going to relapse. And the research is really clear. And John Gottman's research is one of the main ones. I think about the book, The Marriage Clinic, Chapter 1. Talks about outcomes when we try to do skill-based interventions. Success rates about 24%. But that was the good news. The bad news was at 18 months, it had fallen to about 5 to 7% success rates, like a 90% failure, because it's the wrong level of intervention. But it is deceptive. If I go in without a plan, people appear unskilled. People appear like they're just not doing love languages. They're just missing each other. When in reality, that's an attachment panic. It's self-protection that's become rigid. And the very thing that one person does to survive is the worst thing they could do for their partner, who repeats the process. That is what's driving the distress. Therapists have a plan to get there.
Whoa.
Not necessarily get into emotion, because that's up to them. Eventually, we do want to get into emotion. That's our theory of change. But what's driving that distress is those rigid patterns of self-protection. And if I come in without a plan and I get caught by all the eights, I'm never going to see the actual attachment dance that's going on.
Man, sorry. Like now I'm having this like cultural reference in my head. Like I don't know if you've seen like this trend that young kids do. Like in sports, they ate and they'll hold their hand up and they do like the circular motion, like they're eating out of their hand.
Another hand signal.
Seem like I ate. Yeah, we're gonna do that episode. So now when I see Ryan, I'm like, did you eat? This one's a bad one. Like, right? Did you eat? Ate today?
Yeah.
Right?
There we go.
I negotiated. I mediated. I did all the things I didn't need to do. Right.
Yeah.
And this I appreciate you coming in this one, Ryan, because this one does matter. Like the SOT part of me, you're right. When you said that, when I go into a session without a plan, I feel like my nervous system is coming from behind trying to track down a speed runner out in front of me. And it's like they're going to cross the finish line before, and I just don't have the juice to catch up. But if I can go in with a plan, it helps. So example, shout out to the Atlanta training community. Just was it with them. And the therapist did a good job warning me of all the blocks that could come. Shout out to Camille there in Atlanta. She did a good job. She's a highly trained therapist. And she called out, she's like, James, this is where it goes south. Here, 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 here. She marked all the landmines for me. And so because she told me that, I was like, well, based on what you said, here's my plan. Since that's the block, I'm going right towards it and meet the block at the beginning so I can help unlock that block, which then will open up the pathway for this person to come through. Then if this person, but in my mind, I was able to say, this is my loose plan going in. So when I sat in front of them and the emotion got up, my body was like, you were ready for this. You talked through this. But also I taught myself, and if that doesn't work, James, then what if it, but at least it gets my nervous system something to hold on to when the heat gets going a little bit. It makes me think like in football or different sports, like the Andy Reid for the Kansas City Chiefs. Sorry if you don't like him. He's known for going in. He's going to have those first 10 to 15 plays. Yep. They are scripted.
Yep.
We're doing this no matter what, and we're going to see what they throw at us based on these pre-scripted plays. Yep. And his players go in a little bit settled, and they're ready to take that first punch in the mouth because they're like, we got a plan.
Right.
We got a plan.
Nice.
So anyway, that part hit me. And then it also reminded me of a quote George said in one of our SV videos, and it's always stuck with me. If we give this reactivity room to breathe, it will. Not it could. He said it will take over your session if you give it that room.
Good quote.
And so what he was really saying is go ahead and be ready to meet it. You can't just sit back passively and see what happens with it. We already know what it's going to do. So anyway, I just wanted to reiterate like how important this is and how beneficial it could be just to say, even if your plan, you don't stick to it, there's sometimes I've had to throw my plan away. Yep. But my body felt better just being loaded with it.
Yeah, good. I want to talk about that next.
All right.
I do want to circle back.
Go ahead.
If you find yourself triangulated, which sounds like I really agree with one more than the other, or if you find yourself mediating or trying to negotiate conflict, don't feel bad. That's a normal thing to do when you don't have a plan. If you take someone off the streets who's a good person and a good listener, they can be an effective helper without ever going to a day of graduate school. Mm-hmm. Great bartender, great friend. Okay, put them in a room with a couple who's fighting, and they're going to listen to the content, and they're going to side, and they're going to get lost in it. And professionals with 25 years experience can make the same mistake. Mm-hmm. So if you find yourself there, it is normal. Just notice it. Mm-hmm. The same thing we're asking our clients to do. If you find yourself stepping in that hole, notice the hole, slow it down, take a step to reset. At any point in a session, you can reset back to map. It's never too late. Even at 47 minutes, you can, if you're going to quit at 50 minutes, you can do 3 minutes of making the cycle more clear, and you've helped people that way. I also want to warn you, if you get stuck triangulating, mediating, and negotiating, it is popular with clients. Yeah. So this is where it's tricky because in most areas, we want to do what the client wants to do. Couples therapy with high distress at first in stage 1 is often an exception. Because if you start making a plan, a solution plan and negotiating, pursuers are going to love you. Because that anxious push from the pursuer is saying, if I don't push, nothing's going to happen. And a plan regulates me. And the withdrawers often like it too, because it takes the pressure off of them. The problem is neither of them can even come close to doing the solution because they're weighed down by a bunch of unprocessed emotion, a bunch of rigid protection, not enough safety. So it is temporarily popular, but long-term, probably harmful for me to offer solutions. I wouldn't always say that early in my career, but at this point, I'm like, yeah, it's probably doing harm.
So, by the way, go back and keep listening to what you just heard Ryan saying about that maybe 90-second part right there. That will be your way of, like, if you that reactivity starts happening, one of the things you can install in your plan is that speech he just gave. Hold on. I got to jump back in, because if I don't, or even like this, like if I don't jump back in, or if I even try and come in and give you a solution right now and we don't calm this reactivity down, I'm afraid the cycle's just going to take it and use it as a weapon against you. So I got to slow this down. But even that whole part of that also helps to really ground them. And then this happened to me a couple weeks ago. I wasn't really ready for the conflict, if I'm honest. I don't know what was happening that day. I was distracted, and this person was, coming on. It was like maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and I hit it was a telehealth session. And they pop on the screen, and my nervous system wasn't really ready. And then all of a sudden, their conflict pops up, and all of a sudden, though, what helped was it woke up my nervous system a little bit, like, oh. But I was able to pull, like, George, if you ever hear this, which he won't, is it pulled up the terror plan immediately in my mind. That whole, if you've been with me and Ryan in training, where I think we did it on this episode, we talked about terror. It pulled that up in my mind, and my body just automatically enacted that plan. But I guess I'm talking a little bit circular here. But part of this I want to encourage you is, what's your plan to regulate your nervous system in that moment, to even move towards what you see happening with the person in front of you? Just want to include that, like, how are you going to get your nervous system woke up? And when it's woken up, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, and I think in many areas, this wouldn't apply. Like, James, I think about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, you and I both did some consulting with a large company, a nonprofit company, which is a fantastic company, but they were having problems at their sort of leadership mid-level team. I did some work with them. You did some work with them. I remember flying in or jumping on a call one day, and I didn't necessarily need a plan. I'm like, well, let me hear what's going on. Yeah. Like, what's happened? Let me try to identify this thing. And couples just aren't quite that open. And this is a good thing because it's predictable, in other words.
I like that.
A company, an organization of 200 people, there's thousands of things that might be happening. Couples, pretty predictable, actually. Even if there is a contraindicator in play, it's still pretty predictable that the cycle's going to be doing certain things most of the time. And so the more generally you come in just like open-ended, your nervous system is likely to get hit. Now, I want to qualify that. That could be culturally biased coming from me, because I don't know what culture the therapist comes from.
Ooh.
So if they come in without a plan, maybe they'll be doing other things. Maybe they won't be doing conflict negotiation. Maybe they'll be doing something else from their lovely culture, which is really cool. So I'll say maybe this is just what I've seen. But I have worked with people a lot out of Europe, a lot out of Australia, the Middle East, some, and all of them are getting into the same stuck plots that I get into. So I'm not going to say this is just some sort of American concept. I think it's more of a universal concept. But a qualifier for sure is we don't want you to have such a plan where you don't pivot.
That's right.
I did watch a certification video years ago. A sweet person who was literally, I think, reading down a list of EFT interventions, and the client was not coming with them at all. And I'm like, all right, that's not EFT. So we're going to adapt our plan constantly based on what's going on. So this isn't cookie cutter. So we're trying to find this balance between not having a plan and getting caught with the eights, right? Or having such a plan that we're like going to force it on people and not adapt. We're trying to attune this plan. And what is the plan? Well, for me, what I think about at least is just a quick visit, maybe 10 seconds, or it might be 10 minutes as you prepare to go in. And this is my favorite metaphor. If you have a different one, it's fine. Doesn't sound very romantic or artistic. the beautiful way Sue would talk about it. But she and I actually had this conversation. She liked it too. My question is okay, where are their muscles? What session are we in? And where are their muscles? By muscles, what I mean is how much have they already successfully lifted multiple times? To me, that's a good place to start to plan. Like I got 2 boys, teenage boys right now, and they're exploring weightlifting. And it's a tricky thing for them because I want them to start, but don't start too heavy. If they go in and try to lift big weights, they're just going to hurt themselves. And I see EFTers sometimes giving couples too big of a weight because they heard it at a training or saw it on a Sue video. It's like, no, the leading edge needs to be based on where they've been before. So if I can lift 100 pounds, the leading edge is at 101.
Okay.
I don't need to come in at 235. All we're going to do is to set them back and take away confidence because I was too far in front of them. And the converse is also true. If they've each been able to lift 100 pounds, and by pounds, what I mean is how open they can be, how vulnerable they can be when the focus is on their experience, and how comforting or how open their caregiving system. Those are the 2 things I'm always looking for. And if it's 100 pounds, I need to be at 100 pounds with them, or 101, maybe 105. If they're at 101, I also don't want to be at 25. Right, so that's that attunement piece that's really key. But the attunement is on map, not just general. Let's just see what's happening. Let's hear about what's happening for you. There is a little bit of sense of checking in, doing that Tango 1, but pretty quickly I need to be like, all right, where are we in our sort of bond weightlifting journey here? What have they completed? And that's really, really helpful for me because if both parties have not entered primary emotion multiple times and been able to share with the partner, then that is the task. Don't even think about stage 2 or doing all this other stuff. It's like we've got to get addition and subtraction before we're going to algebra. Sorry, I'm flipping metaphors on you there. And so where is their tolerance window? Where is their progress on the map? And they take as long as they take. I got a client right now who's, 18 months in, and we're still really working on old school step 3, which is the ability to access that primary emotion and stay there and get a clear signal out. And I'm thinking about her in particular. She has a really good reason to not do that based on where she's been in this relationship and before. At the same time, that is her leading edge. And I'm going to stay there until her body completes that. However long that takes, we'll just keep walking. And that's it, right? And so that's really, really key that I reflect on that before I go into session. Otherwise, my brain is probably going to get hijacked by the cycle, and I'll be doing something that's not really on their leading edge.
Man, so I made it to be quiet, and I like that segment, Ryan, about getting very practical about how do we even get a plan, what to be looking for to formulate that plan. That was a great segment there. Thank you for that clarity. Yeah. I really don't have much more on this one. I think this was good. And Ryan, I think this is definitely a gift of yours. Like I've watched by the way, I think this is even a good one for someone who's just in a leadership position to go and listen to. Because this is something I've had the benefit of like being a friend to you and watching you like get ready for hard moments. And I've seen you kind of work this process. Like, all right, what are we going to face? What could be some of the pushback? What are we hoping for? Like I've really seen you do that mental work of this is going to be hard. Get ready. Let's not even pretend like this. I remember you and George like, James, be ready for the worst.
That's right.
Be ready for the worst. And I'm
That's
like,
right.
I'm like, now I know what they're talking about.
Yeah. That's right, man. And that's, Sue saw this a little different. She'd push back on me and George. So there's always more than one way to look at this. But she would say, be ready for anything. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, be ready for the worst thing, because that helps me. Yeah. So the listener has to choose what they want to do. But I'm mentoring a trainer in training right now. And,
that's cool.
Yeah, and I think we're heading to externship in
I
a
remember.
month.
Phenomenal person.
Yeah.
Remind me of her name again.
Yeah, Elisa.
Elisa, that's right.
Yeah, she's out of Chile.
Yeah,
and she speaks 3 languages, which means she's way smarter than me. And Elisa, yeah. And so as we're talking, I'm like, hey, we're getting on a plane. We're both going to a place we've never been, and we're going to have a plan. but we expect contingencies.
Yep.
8 or 10 things. The microphone doesn't work.
Yep.
Someone's mad, someone's upset.
Yep.
We say the wrong thing, make a cultural micro. It's like there's so many things that can happen. Nobody's perfect. Mm-hmm. So instead of trying to be perfect, just take a few deep breaths and get ready for these contingencies. I think that's helpful going into couples therapy too.
Which, can I also validate that? I know this is like a side topic, which to me is very culturally humble and attuned. It's like, now I'm not trying to be perfect, perform out of it,
right.
But I'm going to go show up as a human being. And if something goes south, I'm ready to meet that, which I think is cultural safety. So anyway, I just want to point that out and say,
which makes you a little less defensive when it goes wrong.
Exactly. And that's where most of the injuries actually come, is when people start trying to defend themselves instead of just leaning into the pain and hearing.
Good word. Right. Good little cultural lesson for us here in the middle of this.
Right at the end of it, right?
Well, I was just going to end on review here.
Go ahead.
I do think that these little 6 or 7 pieces here, it's not exactly the way Sue said it, but the way EFT was written and played out, it's been saying it for years. Mm-hmm. So if you're like, man, I'm overwhelmed by this, what are you talking about the map? Well, a distressed couple first needs to see the systemic dance that they're in. They don't have to have academic understanding of it.
That's right.
They can. There's still EFTers who would go to the whiteboard and, even have their clients come up on the whiteboard and write out their cycle. The negative on that is it's just a little slow and it's a little heady. Mm-hmm. Okay, so but they do need to have a sense of how they land on each other. And the 3 Ps to me is kind of we're doing work to get that stage 1 insight. The 3 Ps being, when we get in the cycle, what's the pain that I don't always tell you about? What are my protection moves? And the 3rd P is the most important. What's the partner impact? When I go away, I see that it lands on you. And for some couples, it's happening organically. Some couples, I'm like, they're not getting it. I give it to them for homework. I'm like, hey, tell me your 3 Ps. Sometimes multiple times. And then as I'm doing that and or after, I want to get into primary emotion. Yes, in stage 1. There's a lot of confusion around that. People are like, oh, you don't go to vulnerability until stage 2. Yes, you do. You go to vulnerability when you can. So we need to see people on both sides accessing the pain below the cycle and turning and talking to each other about it. So we're enacting whenever it's new, different, deeper. And we're working towards making sure that the couple is using and seeing the cycle as the problem. So I'm just tracking old school steps and stages. And we repeat that over and over and over until the couple has lots of small and titrating corrective experiences, and they de-escalate, which means there's really hardly any signs of escalation. And only then are we trying to go deeper into trauma memories, into negative model of self, stage 2 here, into the fear of being seen and reaching for comfort. And I want lots and lots of wins in that level of vulnerability before we're going for that deepest attachment need. So for me, that's the general order of where I'm just sort of evaluating each person and each couple. Where are we on that map? And that gives me that base plan to come in and not just have my nervous system hijacked by the cycle.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate this. You've given me a bunch of ideas for future podcast episodes on this one for sure. Thank you. You have anything else before we close out?
Well, I was just going to lastly say we also have to tolerate sometimes some protest.
That's right.
Because sometimes people want that negotiation, right? And so it's like me going to my knee surgeon and saying, I want you to do this procedure. The knee surgeon, if he's really good, he, she, they is good, will say, I appreciate that. It makes sense that you would want that. But I've got 20 years of experience in research that says actually this procedure fits the knee. So there is some integrity on our part to say, I care about you, I want to attune with you, but keeping you happy at all times is not always in your best interest. So as EFTers, we're very attuned, but it's not always about giving your clients exactly what they want, particularly when they're caught in that negative cycle. So I would just end with that.
That's a good way to say that. particularly when they're caught in the negative cycle. Because some clients, when they're not in the cycle, they'll catch it and they'll be like, but I also recognize even if you gave me that, it wouldn't help meet my fear. That's a good nugget to end on. You all, thank you once again for putting on for putting on the gear and getting ready to go into these hard and scary moments and to meet people and to help fight for them, even though it feels like sometimes they're treating you like you're fighting against them. Once again, it's just like, it makes me think it's just a child who's scared, who's saying, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. But at the same time, in the background, they're saying, but don't ever leave me. Don't ever leave me, kind of thing. So good job, you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. We hope this experience helps you push the leading edge in your work to help people connect with themselves and with each other. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review. You can contact us at pushtheleadingedge@gmail.com, and you can follow us on our Facebook page at Push the Leading Edge. You can follow Ryan on Facebook at Ryan Rana Professional Training and on his website, ryanranatraining.com. You can follow James on Facebook and Instagram at DocHawkLPC. You can also check out his website, DocHawkLPC.com.